When we read the Bible, we need to remember the authors weren't writing modern history. They were ancient Eastern thinkers, and it would make sense for them, who used complex systems like numerology, to code their spiritual truths. If we look at the Bible in this way, we stop reading literally and start reading more symbolically. So if there are links to numerology, could these be the internal rules governing our spiritual development? Let's look at what the numbers tell us. I'll quickly run through 1 to 10 and then we can look a bit more in depth at some of them with relation to using them to decode the Bible. So, number 1 is the source, God, the Logos, always pointing to the principle of singularity and the beginning of all things. Number 2 is duality. This is the separation of body and soul between you and God. Number 3 means new life and resurrection. Jonah was in the whale for 3 days. Jesus was in the tomb 3 days. Number 4 is our fourfold nature, the makeup of a person, the physical, spiritual, intellectual, and emotional aspects. Number 5, sacrifice and mediation. Number 6 is man-made systems, religion, law, doctrines and rules. Number 7 is divine intervention. Number 8, rupture and separation. Number 9, human consciousness. And number 10 is completion. Let's start with the power of number 9, which signifies human consciousness. In the ancient Hebrew system, the word Adam, which is used to represent earth, or our physical carnal self, meaning our ego, our self-will, the part that thinks, I'm going to do what I want, right? Well, numerically, using the ancient Hebrew system, Adam equates to the number 9. If you look through the Bible, particularly Revelation, you'll see critical timeframes that sometimes seem completely random. 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days. Why do these specific numbers appear so often? Is it because they are coded? For example, if we take 1,260 days and add the digits together, 1 plus 2 plus 6 plus 0 equals 9. Consider the number of those who were sealed or saved. In Revelation 7:4, 144,000. How do we link this to being about human consciousness? We add them together. 1 plus 4 plus 4 plus 000 equals 9. The pattern holds. This could suggest that the ancient authors saw 9 as a universal number for human consciousness, regardless of whether it was focused on the lower self, Adam, or the higher awakened self, the saved. So, if we were to agree that 9 is the master number for human consciousness, can we finally unlock one of the biggest mysteries in the Bible? The identity of the beast, marked by the number 666. What happens when we apply the numerology? We add the numbers together. 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. We reduce the result. 1 plus 8 equals 9. So, who is the beast? Perhaps it's you, it's me, it's all of us. The number of the beast reduces directly to 9, the number of human consciousness. Does this mean that the beast is not some external demon, but rather our own, again, carnal mind, that restless, anxious, self-critical part of you, the one that whispers you'll fail, or keeps you up at night with endless worry about things that don't even really matter? It's the part of us responsible for all of the fear, the anger, the war and destruction we see in the world and in our own lives. Is that the beast? Is that the experience of hell? So the number 9 represents a spectrum. It shows the lower mind, the beast or hell, and the higher mind, the saved or heaven. The goal, therefore, perhaps is not to fight an external monster, but to shift where our consciousness operates. And the saved we mentioned before is simply those operating from the higher consciousness, a state achieved through deep meditation by lifting our awareness above the constant negative chatter of the lower mind. We move into this higher divine saved state. Remember the story where Jesus is talking about catching fish? John 21:6, and he said unto them, cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. Fish is actually an ancient code for spiritual wisdom, for spiritual nourishment, for liberation from the material world. What if the right side of the boat isn't talking geography, but instead is a direction, steering your mental energy towards the right hemisphere of the brain? Cast your net to the right. And we can see here that the right hemisphere of the brain deals more with things like intuition and insight holistic thought. How do we link this to being about human consciousness? It says that they caught 153 fish. 1 plus 5 plus 3 equals 9. The answer right there in the number, it says, after they cast their net to the right side, they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes, i.e. spiritual knowledge. Perhaps Jesus was telling us, if you want to be filled with God's wisdom and understanding of the universe, you must direct your energies to the right hemisphere. And how do we get there? The path, once more, leads to meditation. Jesus said to take no thought and allow your eye to be single, to rise above all those threatening, destructive thoughts of the carnal ego mind and entering the heaven which is within you. And it's truly fascinating to look at the idea that the ancients used numerology and symbolism to express such deep spiritual truths. Let's look at number 5 next. This is a good one, which I'm sure a lot of people may not like or agree with. The number 5 primarily relates to sacrifice because it represents your 5 senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing. These 5 avenues are where we often run into trouble, right? These senses can really lead us astray when under control of the ego. This is where the story of Lucifer becomes mystical. Lucifer means morning star or bright star, and in this sense, he was never intended to be a literal being. The star is symbolic because it has 5 points representing the 5 senses. Now, when the bright star is in its proper place, it symbolizes your senses and ego being under the control of the higher divine realm, and everything is good. Everything is in harmony. However, when that star falls, as Jesus describes, seeing Satan fall from heaven like lightning, it symbolizes that 5 senses are falling under the control of the ego. When your sight, taste, touch, smell, and hearing are driven purely by the ego, the lower carnal mind, we encounter all of our problems. Addiction, materialism, conflict, I mean, you name it. This state is, metaphorically speaking, hell. Satan has arrived within your own ego, your consciousness. So, if the 5 senses fall under the ego's control, how are they returned to the higher realm? Through the sacrifice of the 5 senses. This means surrendering the ego's control, largely achieved by, you guessed it, practicing meditation, taking no thought. Now, purely symbolically speaking, we can also look at the crucifixion of Jesus to describe this spiritual process. He symbolically takes 5 wounds, 2 in the hands, 2 in the feet, and 1 in the side. The taking of this 5th wound is the moment he ascends spiritually and becomes the Christ. This symbolizes that when the flesh is sacrificed, i.e., the ego's control over the senses is sacrificed, the Christ consciousness ascends. The 5 senses which fell with Lucifer to the ego are returned to the higher divine state. And where does this transformation occur? The texts say the crucifixion happened at Golgotha, a word that means the place of the skull. Now, I'm not saying whether the crucifixion happened or didn't happen, but if the 5 wounds are to be taken symbolically and spiritually, then you must rise above human thought into the higher consciousness located where? In the Golgotha, i.e. the skull. This principle of the 5 transforming into 1, the oneness with God, is even mirrored in your own physical body. Between the ages of 1 and 6, the 5 bottom vertebrae in your spine fuse together to become 1 single bone. 5 changes into 1, creating the stable physical foundation upon which you stand. Do you know what that place in your spine is called? It's called the sacrum. Sacrum means the sacred place or the holy place. Why is it sacred? Because the 5 has come into being 1. It embodies the entire foundation of both you and Scripture. The fall of man is the 5 senses taken over by the ego. The resurrection of man is the 5 senses surrendered through meditation, allowing consciousness to rise. Okay, I want to talk about the number 7 now. So, the number 7 signifies divine intervention. And again, we can take and see this concept repeated in biblical stories. Think of Joshua walking around the walls of Jericho 7 times in Joshua 6:15, and then we see in Joshua 6:20 The walls fell down flat. The 7 acts as a clue that God's power will be the decisive factor. Consider the story of Esau and Jacob in Genesis 33:3. Jacob knew Esau was angry and Jacob feared for his life. How we're shown that peace and God's intervention will happen. Jacob walked toward Esau and bowed 7 times. Right then, before he even spoke, the text signaled that the conflict would resolve peacefully because the act of 7 bows signified that a higher power was overseeing the reconciliation. As soon as you spot the number 7 in scripture, it potentially acts as the clue or code, showing you that God has stepped into the situation. There has been divine intervention. I mean, look at the literal interpretation of the 7 years of tribulation that we see preached about. Religious teachers who read this literally suggest God will send 7 years of natural disasters, of war, of famine, of disease, described as the worst stretch of time experienced by humanity. I mean, what kind of God is this? When I think of God, I picture a God of love, not fear. Why? Why would he want us to live in fear? It just doesn't sit right with me. And of course, that's just my personal opinion, and I could be horribly, horribly wrong. I actually had a few experiences in life where I was at death's door and my odds of survival were extremely low. I mean, it's a bit surprising I'm even here right now. And the reason I'm saying this is because at that time in my life, I became a bit obsessed with watching interviews with people who have had NDEs, which means near-death experiences, who actually went far enough to supposedly cross over to the other side. And I noticed that there are a lot of similarities between a lot of these people who obviously don't know each other, yet they're experiencing similar things. And the one similarity that I noticed above all else was that they reached this place and it was just pure love on an undescribable level. And of course, at some point they're told it's not their time and they have to come back. Normally they're told it's because they have some unleft business or some purpose that they're still meant to fulfill. And almost every time that feeling of overwhelming peace and love is so strong that they're like, I don't want to go back. Please don't send me back. I want to stay here. I mean, doesn't that make more sense? That God is a God of love, of peace, of harmony? So anyway, back to the 7. If we take it to mean divine intervention, the original message changes dramatically. It suggests that when you face personal tribulation or struggle, the promise is that God will intervene on your behalf. It becomes a message of hope rather than 7 years of the worst stretch of time experienced by humanity. Sticking with the 7, if we look now at the physical body, the number 7 points to the 7 nerve centers, also known as chakras, which I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with. They run from the base of the spine up to the crown of the head. So we have the root chakra, which is about survival, trust, grounding, sits at the base of the spine. We have the sacral chakra, which is about creativity and abundance, which is located the lower stomach or pelvis area. Number 3 is the solar plexus chakra, which is about power, vitality, manifestation. Solar relates to sun. It's located around the belly button area. We have the heart chakra next, number 4. It's all about, of course, love, healing, acceptance, located in the center of your chest. Number 5, we have the throat chakra, which is expression or communication, located in the throat. We have the third eye chakra, which is all about awareness and intuition and thought, located in the center of the forehead, like we were talking about earlier. Jesus saying, let your eye be single. Number 7, we have the crown chakra, which is spirituality and enlightenment. It's located right at the top of the head. And these basically represent the 7 levels which a person walks to achieve enlightenment. It's the reason the ancient scriptures remain shrouded in so much mystery, entirely deliberate. Did these spiritual teachers assign a numerical value to every major concept and use coded language and symbolism to encrypt the deeper truths? Was this done to conceal the wisdom from anyone who tried to approach the text without the code and instead would only see it as a literal interpretation? And even today we use a lot of symbolic language ourselves. For example, if someone were to say, he really hit the nail on the head with that one, we know that that means he said something very accurately. But imagine reading that through the eyes of somebody who didn't know this meaning. Well guys, It's telling us we need to hit some nails on the head, okay? Pass around the hammers and the nails and start hammering. This is what it's telling us to do. I mean, it's almost comical, and again, I could be wrong, but if it's true, then it's also incredibly tragic. This technique of burying spiritual mysteries within numbers originated with the scholars of Egypt and of Chaldea. They intentionally disguise these deep truths to hide the power of inner consciousness from falling into the hands of those who might use them selfishly for their own personal gain, to achieve control or power or money and everything else, which sadly seems to have happened anyway, even with the more literal translation we use now. And of course, while the scripture was written presumably to preserve this knowledge, I'm not sure at the time of writing whether the authors were thinking about us reading it 2,000 years later, especially without the code. Now, these are just my personal opinions, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and until then, I will see you next time.